You swallowed the whole tea bag.
No, okay. Okay, so that's a bit embarrassing. That what I actually do is if I drink coffee, I go hyper, but I find that tea is just the right amount of caffeine. So I really like bleed it dry. So once I've sucked all the caffeine, I'll like suck all the caffeine out of the tea bag and then chuck it back.
That's
And then
um that's that's some people. Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah. We'll edit that out, I think.
no, why? Yeah, yeah. All
You
right.
like, oh,
Um,
ladies and gentlemen, go on the YouTube channel if you want to see something that'll make your day. All right, we should begin. Let's go to the intro.
okay. All right, guys, welcome to Bridges of Belief. It's Kevin Poraj and my colleague,
Oh yeah,
Poya. A
oh
little bit
yeah.
slow. My
I didn't
colleague
know if you were
Poya.
gonna say it or not. I was
Promise
like, are
you,
you gonna
I
say it or am I
promise
gonna
you,
say it?
I promise you, he is not that slow in real life. He's a lot quicker than that. All right, so let's jump into this topic, guys. So this is a topic that is definitely very close to me and Poya's heart, which is outcome obsession and how it holds us back in navigating the Christian walk or just really life in general, whether you're a Christian or non-Christian, right? Now, what would you say is the goal for this topic, Poya? Like, what are people going to get out of this?
I think people are going to realize what outcome obsession actually is and recognize whether that's something they're kind of trapped in. And I think, and yeah, whether find out whether they're trapped in, and then how do you actually get out of that, and what is the benefit of getting out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that I would say the goal for this topic is it can actually help you live a life that's probably a little bit freer, a little bit more enjoyable, and at the same time is going to help you get what you want in life. I think that's the goal, right? So let's dig in a little bit more into the why of this topic. So first of all, what happens if you don't understand this topic or you don't get this topic, Boya?
It's kind of like having, in a sense, it's kind of like having an illness without knowing that you have the illness, right? You get all the negative impacts without actually knowing why, and to an extent, you probably think that having those negative, effects are normal, right? So it's like having a cold and sneezing all the time and having a runny nose, headache, and all that, but not knowing that you have a cold. That's kind of
Absolutely.
how I would describe it in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely how it can feel. And like breaking it down, what that actually looks like, this is how I see it, is like you will feel, if you don't understand this topic, very like you are a slave to something, right? And when you're a slave to something, that you live your life with a lot of fear because whatever you need, right, you're a slave to. If I need a relationship to be happy, I'm a slave to it. If I need more money than like my general means, then I'm a slave to money. If I need to for everyone to like me, then I'm a slave to people wanting to like me. So what happens? You live your life as a slave and always being happy if someone gives you what you want, and then being really unhappy when you don't get what you want. And the reality is half of life is not getting what you want, so you're inevitably just setting yourself up for failure, right? But if you do understand this topic, like what are some of the benefits that people can get out of really getting this topic, Poya?
Well, to get back to I guess the cold analogy is you recover from a cold, you get treated for the cold, and then you have a much more enriching life because you're not sneezing all the time. So I guess to bring that into that really odd metaphor into this, it's if you actually have if you actually have a knowledge of what outcome obsession is, that opens you up to, okay, this is what it is. Oh, is this a problem I have? Cool, I do. How do I deal with it? And then that frees you, as you said before, you're a slave to it, right? If you need something, so it frees you up, and it frees you of that and of that fear. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Frees you up with that fear. And I will say, and I think Paul can agree with me, like those are some of the things that we can come up with off the top of our heads, right? But there's a whole lot more than that. There's probably a whole lot more than that, especially on this topic. So, what would you say, Poya, starting off on this topic? Like, what are some of the common mistakes that people make, right? Or myths on this particular topic of outcome obsession and being focused with, like, being obsessed with the outcome?
yeah. So I think people can lose track of what drives them, what their why is,
Yeah,
of like what, yeah, what the why is. Why am I doing the thing I'm doing? So say for example, like I saw a video you posted, I think yesterday, Kevin, on Facebook, where you're talking about when you first started your business. I think there was a point where you were just like, all right, I want to make money, I want to make money, I want to make money. And then you're saying
Yes.
how like your clients, you weren't getting more clients, and you probably, I think you'll be saying you weren't performing as well too. And so once you let go of like, I want the money, you just focused on your mission, which is serving your clients. It's like more clients started to come and then the money started to come, right? So I think one of the biggest mistakes of outcome obsession is you get obsessed with the outcome, and that takes away from you being in the now and actually like doing whatever you're meant to be doing well, whether it's a business, a job, a creative project, or even just being a friend, or even on
Yeah.
dates. On dates,
I
yeah.
like what you said. And this is where, like, now when I as I talk to you, it's one of those moments where I start to realize there's a whole lot more benefits to this topic than you realize. And honestly, it's a very, very big topic. So me and Poy are going to unpack it the best we can. But one of the things that Poy mentioned is definitely you lose sight of your why, right? Remember, we are driven by either fear of not getting what we want, or love of being excited to do something. And when
Mm.
you're driven from a place of fear of, oh my God, I'm too scared, I'm not going to get any clients, so I need to do whatever I can to get the clients. First of all, you're not doing it from your true why of really wanting to serve people, right? And when you're not doing it from your true why of really wanting to serve people or really authentic reasons, then you're not really going to get a level of performance that that you're really going to want, right? So there's 1,000 ways to really explain this, but let me kind of like frame it with this: that when you are outcome obsessed, when you're in a place of outcome obsession and you're an emotional slave to going, I need it to work this way, there's like a need, there's like a desperation to it. And when there's a desperation to it, it takes you away from showing up and being really authentic in that moment and actually getting what you want, right? There's 1,000 different examples on this, but I think I'll kind of like, yeah, anything you want to say here, Poya?
I think as well, just add to what you're saying, it actually robs you of the joy and happiness you get when you actually get the thing. Like, say for example, you're running a business, you want to make 100K in your first year, and like you're just so focused on that, you may very well get there, but you're not going to feel happy, because then there's like, oh, okay, now on 200K. I mean, I had this year. There's a bunch of goals that I wanted to achieve this year. I actually achieved
Yeah.
a lot of them, but I was miserable for a lot of this year. I was like, oh man, I suck. I'm like, so
But I
like,
think
yeah.
you pointed out something that's really important, which is in that 100K that you might
Yeah.
be chasing, you're going, I'm only going to be happy when I reach this. And,
Mm,
which means that 90% of the time when you're chasing it, you're not really enjoying yourself, exactly like Poya said. So
yeah.
it's like you become outcome focused, but when you become outcome focused, you don't know, or you're not aware that you're doing it at the expense of actually enjoying the journey the whole way, right? And I think the reality of like life is meant to be lived in a way where like the goals are supposed to be something that excites you, but you're supposed to enjoy the process and what you're actually doing, which is really interesting because it comes back to the first topic that we talked about last week, which is purpose. And when you're doing something from your purpose, right, you are not only just enjoying the end result, you're also enjoying the process as well,
Mm,
right? Like I remember, like I was doing a post the other day, and a lot of I've had a lot of friends who are actors or musicians or sports people, and here's the reality: if you want to become an actor, you don't need to win a Grammy or
Oscar.
land that movie to do what you love. If you are a musician, then you don't need to be in front of a crowd to do what you love. You can start posting content right now. If you're a sports person, you don't need accolades or to get onto the greatest team in the world to do what you love, right? You can do it right now. You can play it right now because you loving doing what you're doing has got nothing to do with the end outcome or with the outcome that can get you so obsessed and you can be an emotional slave to. The reality is you can do it right now. And it's funny how these two topics blend because, yeah, when you're doing something that you truly love, like you're not outcome focused, you are enjoying the process as well as being looking forward to the outcome. So I think it's so now, Poya, share this with me. If that's the case, right? How did this now play into Christianity?
mm-hmm. great question. Um, I do have an answer for this, but I feel like I lost it. So just give me a sec.
Sorry, guys. But meanwhile, I'll just apologize that I'm sick. I'm not really
uh,
sorry. Anyway,
don't be sorry. You're allowed to be sick, bro. It's all right. I mean, you're Pentecostal. Just do a prayer of healing. You're set. Um, that was the joke, guys. No,
maybe that's our next topic, right?
yeah, it's all, yeah, sure. Yeah, we could do that. I think in terms of how that ties into faith, right? It's the whole thing of like, I think it's where are you building your house? Are you building your house on rock or sand? And what I mean by that is I think the outcome of where we're going, like being too outcome obsessed, in a sense, could affect the foundation upon which we build our life. If you're a Christian, right? Like, but you just want to be rich and you just want to be wealthy or you want to be famous or whatever, that's going to actually inform the foundation that you build your life on, right? Like, you're gonna like, well, if you're a Christian and your main outcome is, I guess, you want to serve God. Oh, actually, I don't know if this was no, it does. Yeah, and you want to serve God, and it's like you have that like that's a more solid foundation. Why I say that is like if you're so obsessed with money, you'll hit that 100K. You're not going to be happy. Then you're going to go pursue that 200K. You're not going to be happy, and it's not a solid foundation, and it's going to affect other areas of your life because it'll collapse. Because you don't have your wires distorted, your foundation's distorted. While if your outcome is really just trying to serve God well, which I think is the best outcome, that I think is the only outcome most Christians should have. That's like our main driving force. It's then that's a more firm foundation because that will also inform other decisions you make. So I think also being obsessed with the outcome will inform decisions you make, and that in itself possibly informs the foundation or even highlights what the foundation really is. So maybe it's not that it informs the foundation, but it's like it actually shows you what your real foundation really is, what your real why is. So I wonder if even being outcome obsessed is a reflection of the why. So yeah, what do you think of that, Kev? I'm still not sure if that total analogy totally
I'm
works.
not 100% sure because
Yeah.
I don't think it reflects what the true why is. I think there
Hmm.
is. I think this is this is where I love. We could just go on this topic forever, but I think this is now just me soundboarding. But I think that
Hmm.
as we as human beings pursue anything, whether it's a relationship, whether it's God, whether it's finances or a better future or specific goals, that we are always coming from a higher mind, which is where we are pursuing what we really value or what like the area that we're good in. So for me, it's personal development business. Whenever I am coming from a place of doing this because I love it and doing it because I want to serve people, then I'm coming from the higher mind. But as soon as I'm coming from a place of fear, that would be what I call the lower mind or the animal mind, where I'm doing it to please others, or I'm doing to get accolades, or I'm doing this because I'm scared to fail. Right. So the first, like the higher mind is love based. I'm doing it because I love it. The lower mind is fear based. Right. And I think that the reality is we all as human beings have a higher mind and a lower mind. And it's very easy because of certain situations and because of how we perceive the situations, we can get trapped into the lower mind and be operating from the lower mind. Right. Which is worried about what people think, worried about avoiding pain, seeking quick pleasure or instant gratification. So that kind of comes into it. And I think what orients us towards outcome obsession is the animal mind because it's coming from fear. It's going, remember, the animal mind is avoiding predator, seeking the prey. It's avoiding pain, seeking
Hmm.
pleasure. Right. So, if you're hating the job that you're at, those are the people that come in and avoiding pain, seeking pleasure. Woo! Can't wait for Friday, man. Can't wait for drinks because they hate the job. These are the people that leave at 11:58, right, to go to lunch, which is at 12 o'clock, because they can't be there, right? So often what they may do is they may get obsessed with the outcome because it takes them away from what they're dealing with right now, right? So I think that to answer your question, I think it's we can operate from two different parts of ourselves, and primarily where we want to be operating, where I would say is the better place to be operating, where I think God wants us to operate from, is the higher mind.
Yeah, you know what? I agree. And I actually, as you're saying that, I was like, oh, even in my answer, I was outcome obsessed and I was coming from the lower mind. So I wanted to come up with a dope answer.
Right,
And then I
right,
came up with a weird analogy that actually didn't make any sense. So even now we
right,
see it in real time. So yeah, absolutely agree.
right. You know what's really interesting, and even in this conversation, I've had those thoughts too. So what's interesting is, right, as like here's what I've discovered, and we can all resonate with this, right? You're in a conversation with someone and you're not thinking about what to say next. You are really focused on what they're saying and you're just absorbing it. The what are you going to say next just comes. You don't chase and think about what do I say next. As you're listening, it just rises up without the thinking, right? And that is really what the power of being truly present, right? So it's like even right now, when I was listening to you, at parts I was zoning out, going, "What am I going to say next?"
Mm,
That stopped me from coming up with the best and most authentic answers. Because
yeah.
if I'm listening to you and I am going, "Okay, I listened to a little bit of Poya, but let me think about what to say next." Now my mind is not present in what I'm doing, which is should be listening to you and being present, and it's focused on what should I say next. And now I miss out on maybe some more information that I could have even potentially gathered, and I'm not coming up with the best answers, right? And I think like what I've discovered, by the way, this is a completely different thing. Is like as we're starting this podcast, as you start something, there's obviously a lot more of that because you're starting it. But I think as we go on, obviously we're going to be able to be more present in what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's a really great example that you pointed out that in this moment, I could be thinking about what's next. That's outcome obsession. So I'm not focused on the process. I'm not actually getting the best outcomes. So great that you brought that up. Anything else you want to say on the topic?
Actually, what you just said reminds me of Ecclesiastes, the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible. So it's been a while since I've read it. I've only just started reading it again, but the opening of that book, the first chapter, there's we don't know who wrote it. I think some people think it was King Solomon, some people think it's a teacher. Actually, what I'll do, I'm gonna get it up and read it to you guys. Ecclesiastes chapter 1. Kevin, I think you would love this book as well. I think this is one of the best books, one of my favorite books in scripture. All right, so
You want me to I'll read it for you. So just tell me what it is.
oh,
Tell me
sorry,
what
I
this
got it up. I got it up. So there's a section I
go
want to
for it.
read in particular. So
Yeah.
starting from verse 2, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets and hurries back to where it rises. The wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course. All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear its fill of hearing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. And it goes on a bit more and more. And it's from memory, because I still need it. It's been a while since I've read it. It's this existential sort of reflection on life and what is the meaning of life, and what is why, like what is how can I make things, why are these things meaningless? So this guy, I think in chapter 2 he talks about how he had everything. He had all his wealth, he had a harem of women, he had all the pleasures that would delight a man's heart, right? And it was meaningless. It didn't mean anything to him. And he talks about, you work, you build your wealth and all this, but for what? For your kids who then probably going to squander it. Like that's all you're living your life for. And so if I'm understanding the book correctly, and again, look, it's been a while, but I believe this is what it's saying, or at least part of what it's saying. It's, you can work for these things, and yes, these things are good. Building wealth is good. Wanting to, start a family is good. I think even trying to pursue certain pleasures, like I bought the new Spider-Man game. It's sick. I love that. I saved up for a PS5 a few years ago. I bought that. That's good. These are good things. But if they're the main things that you're going for, if you're too obsessed with those outcomes, they're going to be meaningless. You're not going to enjoy your life. You're not going to be happy. You're not going to be content. You're not going to have any inner peace. And then what's going to happen is you're going to get the thing and you're still going to be as miserable, if not more. And so from what
Mm.
I'm seeing in this, from what I'm seeing in this book is he's getting all these things, but it's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. And I think at the end he comes around. He's like, it's God. A relationship with God is where all meaning comes from. And I think as Christians, what we can learn from this is we can get so caught up in the trappings of the world. We want to, we like even on this podcast, right? There's a part of me that's like, man, I want this to be sick. I want us to like go off and everyone to see my face and stuff. Like the vanity in me, right? And it's like, I want that, but I know if I get that, I'm just going to be it's not going to do it. I'm just going to be like, I'm going to want something else, right? Even this year, I'll be honest. I bought a house this year and I was like, if I buy this house, I'm going to be happy. And I was obsessed. I was obsessed with this. I was saving up. I was like doing all the research. You know what? I bought it. I was happy for like a second, and then the same. I was as miserable as I was before. I wanted to There was another goal I wanted to achieve this year. I was obsessed every weekend. I'd be sleeping in my, like, not sleeping in my car, but I'd be pretty much living out of my car. I'd be packing food and change of clothes and stuff and showering at different Anytime Fitness gyms. Shout out to Anytime Fitness. We're not sponsored by them, but they're a great gym. But yeah, and I was looking for a rental place. Eventually I got one. I was just as miserable as before. I thought I'd be happy living close to a city and the beach. Bro, I was just as miserable because I was so obsessed and I wasn't able to enjoy what was in front of me. I wasn't able to enjoy my relationship with God, my relationship with friends. And I wasn't even able, I don't think I could have served, I think I could have served God a lot better as well if I wasn't so outcome obsessed. And so the point I'm trying to make here is like, at least I've definitely felt this is when I'm so outcome obsessed, it takes the meaning out of everything. It takes the meaning out of the present. It takes the meaning
Yeah.
out of the actual outcome. And
Yeah.
it's just not profitable for anyone. There's no fruit there. But now, actually, my journey recently has been to learn to let go of the outcome and to enjoy the process. To have an outcome in mind, a goal, but to
Yeah.
enjoy the process of working towards that goal, but also to
Yeah.
just enjoy the process of being. I'm not exactly where I want to be in terms of certain things I want to achieve, but I'm
Yeah.
happy. I'm happy because I get
Yeah.
when I'm out with a friend, I'm not thinking I don't have this thing. I'm thinking I'm with my friend that I love, and then at home, I'll work a little bit on these goals. I'll do some like writing stuff or whatever it is. I'll do that
Yeah.
for maybe in 40 minutes a day or whatever it looks like. And then I'm done. But I'm not lamenting that I'm not there. And if anything, I'm happier.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't even need the outcome. I just
Yeah.
love the thing. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Great. I think you just gave some really great examples, and thanks for being vulnerable and sharing those parts. And it's crazy, like me knowing you, it's like I've seen that there's definitely topics that we hear about, but there's like it's really hit you. It's gone from here to really here. So I think it's yeah, no, I'm glad to see that it's really impacted you. I agree, man. I agree. And I think that yeah, I don't have much to say other than I agree. I think it's so true. I think we've gone on so many potential tangents, right? But I think the fact that you like that when you're doing something meaningful, usually there's like a I don't know, man. There's a thousand different ways to go about this. We really can go in a thousand different directions. But how about Poya? You tell people, right? Because I feel like even then, you didn't actually tell your real like. I guess there's more you could share on this topic from a personal story because the
Mm.
whole finding the job because you've gone through situations where this topic really like made sense to you, and I feel like you haven't mentioned that yet.
Yeah, sure.
But that
Yeah,
was
I can
really
touch
good.
on that. Oh, thanks, bro. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I'll share a bit about my journey in 2020. So I worked in a job in from like 2018 to 2019 on a contract, and then contract ran out, and yeah, I was applying for jobs and stuff, and just wasn't getting any luck. And then we roll over to 2020, COVID starts, and I start freaking out because I'm like, how am I going to find a job when all these other people way more qualified than me and experienced have lost their jobs? Like I have more competition and I was burning myself out. I was my routine in COVID was like I'd work out, apply for jobs, do some more workout, like more exercise, apply for jobs, meditate. That's it. And maybe I'd enjoy myself at night. But I would burn myself out. I'd be like doing 12 hours, sometimes 12 hours a day of just applying for jobs and trying to build a portfolio. And man, I got nowhere, dude. I would get interviews and I was just in such a state of need that I wasn't just being myself. And I didn't and I wasn't enjoying my life. I was so miserable. And look, COVID was a hard time. It was a very scary time. But there were also a lot of people I knew who were enjoying themselves, who were having fun, like discovering new hobbies and stuff, enjoying the free time. I was like, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. And
I
my
remember
journey,
being in those times, and I remember that
yeah.
was you just weren't in a good place, and I could just feel it. I don't know what it was, but you could just feel it. And side note to the people who are in that place where you're chasing, whether it's a partner, whether it's a relationship,
Mm,
whether it's specific finances or a specific job or a specific outcome. Side note that people can sense that you are just not centered, you are just not grounded, and you will notice that in those places in your life, remember, you're in your animal mind, which is avoiding predator, seeking prey. You are seeking instant gratification. You are, abusing porn. You are abusing sugar. You are abusing social media. You are abusing, you're gossiping. You are bitching about people. You're doing all these different things, right? So it's important to remember that as a side note, when you're in this place, people can sense it. Yeah. But go on, Poya.
oh, absolutely. And just to add on to that, I was becoming angry and resentful, bitter. Like I was definitely coming from a lot my lower mind, and definitely not acting in a way that was in line with how God wanted me to live. I wasn't acting like Jesus. And a big part of that journey was I started like it actually was a lot of my faith was affected. I was angry at God for not getting the outcome. And I actually read this book. It's fantastic. It's called Enjoying God. It really like it really helped me to see more of who God is and his love. I had a
Yeah.
very almost fire and brimstone view of God before that. I mean, obviously knew his loving side, but I think it helped shift gears a bit. But I remember reading that book and then like, all right, I'm gonna read my Bible like every day. And I would read it for the first few weeks. I would get like nothing. It's just like reading a bunch of words. But then I felt like the spirit working in me. And I remember reading Job and seeing all the suffering he went through and how, I had a lot of suffering in my life, not just related to this, but previous from childhood. And like, oh, okay, help me make sense. It helped me to like have some peace with that. And then I just started like feeling my heart changed and I started trusting God more. And then I started thinking, all right, like this isn't working what I'm doing. There's a reason that God's put me in this season. And I started like, starting to enjoy myself. Like I got really into making art and I would feel guilty when I was make art instead of applying for a job. But I was like, you know what? I don't need to apply for 50 jobs a day. I'll apply for 20 or whatever. Like it wasn't that much. I applied for maybe 20 at most a day or something. But like I would be like, all right, I'm apply for jobs for maybe a few hours a day. But then after that, I'll relax. I'm gonna spend time with God. I'm gonna call friends. I'm gonna exercise. I'm gonna do some art. And I started to enjoy just being unemployed. And it didn't mean I stopped working hard. I still worked hard, but I wasn't burning myself out. And I started to become more of my authentic self in interviews. I stopped needing it. I even had like ideas for potential career changes I could do if this didn't work out. And then I remember there was one week where I got an interview. I got reached out by a bank for an interview, which was such a blessing. I was totally underqualified for the job. I ended up applying for a job at an organization I love that I used to volunteer for. And then I got a job interview for another bank graduate program. So in 3 weeks, I had 3 interviews and I was fully myself. I went to those
Yeah.
interviews and they said, are you familiar with this? And I would say, no, I'm not, but I can learn. And then I'll show an example of how I learned.
Yeah.
Instead,
Wow.
before I'll be like, oh, yeah, no, I am a bit. And I'd like, it's obvious I'm BSing. But here I was fully authentic. I was like, and I remember one interview I was in, the guy's like, you're still trying to figure out your career and where you're going and stuff and all that. Like, and I'm like, yeah, I am. I really am. And I like it.
Yeah.
It was very honest. And I totally own my weaknesses and my shortcomings. And I didn't even make excuses. I was like, no, I am. And this is how I'm trying to work on it. And I could have been better in the past, but this is how I'm trying to work on it. And you know what? What happened? I got 2 job interviews out of those 3. The
Wow.
graduate program, they didn't give me an offer because they said I was too experienced, but they wanted me to send their CV because they're like, maybe we'll have something for you in the future.
Wow. Wow.
But yeah, I had these 2 jobs, one from a bank, and I talked about this in the last episode from where I
Yeah.
work now. And now I have the best job I've ever had. I love my job. I get to make a difference with for a lot of marginalized people, and it's a blessing. It's just such a blessing of a job. Like I love it. Like it's a privilege to work for where I work, and it's something I have to. I want to remind myself of every day. And that was all because I learned to just let go and to enjoy being with God. I think that's a big thing as Christians we can take away. So I guess this ties into implementation. I think the way we implement this firstly is where's your relationship with God at? do you even have a relationship with God? And if you're not a Christian, I guess that's a bit tougher. So I guess if you're not a Christian, look, I'm just going to be cheesy. Maybe check out the whole Jesus thing. But the first step is to have a relationship with God. I guess, look, and if you're a Christian, if I want to make this more general, I guess like try to figure out how you can relate to a higher power. No, if you're an atheist, I guess that's a bit harder, like maybe
Oh,
meditation or
you
something.
know what?
But
Well,
yeah,
this is interesting. I actually shared this with
yeah.
a.
Okay.
First of all, I just want to say that that story was like, I think a real story that people can actually relate with, like looking for
Mm,
something, being shot down again and again, and then eventually kind of shifting into this place where it's kind of like you trust God, you trust yourself enough to be authentic and just know that whatever happens happens. And it's like, and the paradox is that when you do that and you let go of the outcome, you get the outcomes and more, right? It's almost like when you trust God, trust yourself, then God always gives the outcome. Even there's a verse that says, what is it? I think it's like, fill my storehouse with, your offerings, and something like, test me in this and see if I will not pour out the heaven, like the blessings of heaven. And many, many times I've been in positions in my life where I was really low on money. I didn't want to give, or I didn't want to tithe, or didn't want to give money at all. And in that moment, I was challenged to, and as soon as I did, next couple of weeks, all of a sudden, sales
mm,
started to flow in, things started to completely shift for me. So it's almost like a law that God has built into the universe, that if you're able to let go, with sometimes with conscious action, like purposely doing the thing that you're actually scared of, it shifts you into a completely different mindset. And the things that seem to come into your life seem to be very, very paradoxical. It's a crazy concept. That's one thing I'll say. Now, the other thing I'll say is this, right? For those who, you're not Christian and you're kind of like listening to this, I said this to a client of mine. I said, even if it doesn't matter. Even if you don't believe, just kind of like, and you don't know who God is or whatever, just talk to the entity and just talk to him every day and just be like, hey, I'm confused with, just talk to it
mm.
every day. Whether
I
you think
love
it's the
that.
universe, whether you think it's a God, whether you think it's Jesus, whatever you think it's, Muhammad, Shiva, whoever it is, right? Just talk to the entity and just go reveal yourself and share your concerns, share whatever you want to share. And I guarantee you, if you're truly searching, he'll reveal himself. And I said this to a client of mine, and he's really starting to see some shifts for himself. So I think that's the best way. Like, I don't want to go push Jesus on you. Test it for yourself. Speak to him. Be like, if you're real, show yourself to me. I think that's the best way to go
Yeah.
about it.
No, absolutely. 100% agree. And I think as well, this is the other thing I just want to add to that. I think
Yeah.
as well, like this isn't like a prosperity gospel thing. It's not like, oh, if you do this, like God will bless you. I think really what it is God, like, how do I describe it? I think it's like God wants to give us good gifts a lot of time. And when we idolize something, because our common obsession is really idolatry, right? It's making something your God. And I think that's something that's a big part that we need to mention. It's idolatry, right?
Yeah.
Like even if you get the
Yes.
thing, you're not
Yes.
going to enjoy
Absolutely.
it. But if you let go and you make God the number one in your life, or if you're not a Christian, just let go in general. I think when God gives you that thing, you actually treasure that thing more, and you'll treasure God more. So you actually get the best of both worlds. So the
And
worst out, yeah.
dude, isn't it funny that that is the way that things happen? It's almost like the
Mm,
thing that is not good for you and you're not going to enjoy anyway like like is the way that God wants you to do something. It has reasons, because even if you did the thing that he didn't want you to do, you would experience the consequences. And it's like, sometimes we need to go experience the consequences and be like, okay, God was right the whole time. And it's and sometimes we're missing out, right? But then, like, and I think of everything like that, whether it's like, even in the Bible, if it says don't go do drugs, you go do drugs. Look at anyone who does drugs. Do they enjoy themselves? You know what I mean? Look at the people that are unbelievably promiscuous. Are they enjoying themselves? Right?
mm,
It's just, and the funny, I was thinking about this the other day as well. It's like, people want Jesus, they want to trust in some higher power that can benefit them, but they don't like the rules. But then think about this though: if you don't have rules, when you're pursuing a goal, you're not going to succeed. If you don't have rules or discipline, you're going to end up nowhere in your life. The fact that you don't have rules and discipline in your life is the thing that actually makes you feel like crap. So I don't know. It's really interesting. Anyway, I feel like we can go on this topic forever. We probably could even talk about this more. We might even do a second episode on this one. But right now, guys, we're going to have to cut it. I hope you found this valuable. And all I want to say is see you later. Enjoy.
See you guys. Much love. Thank you for tuning in.